Hey, it's Lauren, and welcome to the Raw Raw podcast. So on the show today, I spoke with my dear friend, Claire Ness. She is a performer, she's a musician, she is a comedian, she's a writer, she's a singer, she's incredible, and she told me all about her journey. We spoke over Zoom where she was in Whitehorse, Yukon, Canada, and I was in Australia. The cool thing about our conversation actually was that Claire was talking to me from the middle of the woods. So you might hear a couple of, interesting background noises such as leaves that are being crunched under her feet and a raven cawing. So listen out for that for sure. One of the reasons why I love talking with Claire is not only is she one of my favorite humans in the world, but she also is really honest and she always tells it like it is. One of my favorite things about having conversations with people is when they share stories and examples that are really tangible, and Claire did a lot of that. So there was a lot of really tangible things to take away from our conversation. We talked about marketing, we talked about learning to say no, we talked about some of the important tips that she's learned in business in regards to making decisions, we talked about return on investment, and we talked about, just life as a mom as well and a hardworking artist. So it's all happening for you here. It is so, so, so good. Let's get to it. Here is the podcast. Hi, I'm Lauren, and welcome to the show. So normally I like to start off every episode reading the bio that the person that I'm interviewing or having a conversation with has given me. But today I just decided that I want to do what I want because it's my show. And I am talking to one of my most beautiful best friends in the world. And so I figured that, I can just say whatever I want about her and then she can come on and say that it was all lies or it was all true. So basically, my guest today is my amazing friend, actor, singer-songwriter, amazing friend. I already said that. That's twice. It must be true. She's a mom, she's a sister, she's a writer, she's a balloon twisting clown and a stilt walker, a performer, a producer, a puppeteer, a gymnast, a comedian, a businesswoman, a dancer, and it's all wrapped up in a beautiful name of Claire Ness, a beautiful soul, which is Claire Ness. So Claire has also released 4 albums. She's produced over 20 events and performed in at least 1,000 events all over the world. She's joining me today to talk about her journey as an artist, what are some of the best tips she's learned as a businesswoman, how things have changed for her since becoming a mom, and whether you should or shouldn't quit your day job. Claire, thank you for being on the show.
Hey, Lauren, it's so good to see you. The last time I saw you was Christmas time, and you were up here visiting, and now you're across the world again, back at your home in Australia. We miss you up here.
That's right. Claire is joining me from her home, my former home in Whitehorse, Yukon, Canada, and it's about 4 p.m. there, but it looks like it's 10 in the morning because we are recording this in June, and the solstice, the longest day of the year, has just gone by a day, actually, for you.
That's right.
The sunlight is piercing through. Anyway, let's get to it, Claire, because basically one of the things that I love about, our relationship is that we just tell it like it is. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've been able to, stand the test of time as far as friends go. And I know that you're going to, tell it to me straight today and give our listeners, a little bit of, Claire Ness love and encouragement and advice because you've been through a lot. So first of all, is there anything that you can't do?
I am starting my first garden this year, and my dad is a whiz in the garden, and I actually worked in a greenhouse transplanting plants and stuff, but I might not be a very good gardener.
But you don't know that yet.
I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling that the only reason my plants are doing well is because my sister planted one of them and my dad put his soil in the other, like I've got his like horse manure and soil mixture, compost mixture. But I have a feeling if I did it myself, it would be pretty lame. So that might be one of the many things I'm not good at.
Sister, I'll just get you to not move around too much because I can hear scratching of the phone. Sorry.
I know I'm crunching the lichen.
Oh, okay.
It's been raining. It's been raining here for like weeks, and now it's been sunny for a day, and it's all of a sudden just dry as S again.
Okay.
So
Well,
I'll try not to crunch
sit
around.
on your bum.
I try.
All right. So Claire, when I asked you about whether or not there's anything you can't do, basically you made up a real BS excuse. So clearly you can do everything. And we will live to see whether or not your garden actually grows anything. But I think that, you're probably going to succeed in that. So first of all, let's get into the journey of artistry and, why you started to get into the world of performance, because that is what I'd like to discuss with you today.
So I don't think I had much of a choice. I have always only ever wanted to perform, like from day one. It feels like for as long as I can remember, and it's all I've ever wanted to do. And I've obviously I do a lot of different types of performance art. Like I write songs and sing songs and do theater, and I do circus, and I do puppetry and clowning, and but I did at one point think, of the visual arts and stuff, but really there's nothing else. Oh, and I was a snowboarder, like a competitive snowboarder, and I thought for a moment there, I thought that that's what I wanted to do with my life, but really there was no way that I could give up all the arts stuff. So I don't know. I did comedy school and circus school. I worked for a circus in Toronto. But my whole life has just been basically pushing, trying to reach goal after goal after goal. And it's almost always been in the performing arts.
I love, watching you perform and in all of your different facets, because you really can become the character that you are. And when I've been able to see you share vulnerable songs on a stage, or, walk through the crowds of children, as a 7-foot stilt walker, or, do clowning and doing your ballooning, or just doing your stand-up, comedic, stints. It's just what I find has always been so amazing is how you can become those people and take on all those different personalities. Why is it you've been able to do that? And do you use that as a way of expressing different parts of yourself?
Yeah, I guess it is different parts of the self. I've always felt more comfortable on stage when I'm playing someone else. Like I like doing my singer-songwriter stuff and the stand-up comedy stuff, but there's always been something lacking there for me, like the putting on a character and a costume and becoming someone else, and you almost become this vessel for this stuff that I don't even know where it comes from. The best performances I've ever had have probably been where I've been in character and I've just been improvising with the character. So it's almost like, I've come up with these brilliant things where you go like, this can't be anything but some kind of, like, I'm a channel for the magic formula for me, I guess, is that the character stuff. And I do music that way too. Like I've done, Ashley Saunders, my character, who is super pretty and super kind of like this prom queen character. She's really, really pretty, and I brought her to Australia. Actually, I did her in the Adelaide Fringe Festival for a comedy show. And then Johnny, they both do songs as well. So like I write songs as them. And there's something really freeing probably, and that might be part of it, is that if it's not you, you don't have your own ego to protect. You can like lampoon and make fun of this kind of stereotype that we all know, almost like Commedia dell'arte, where there's all those archetypal characters. Mine aren't traditional Italian archetypes, but they're like these people that we know. Everyone knows an Ashley Saunders, and everyone knows a Johnny, who's like this kind of mullet, handlebar mustache guy from New Jersey who's like wanna be a rock star. So there's something freeing there when it's not you, and you can just let it go.
One of the challenges that business people have, especially with business people that are, the front of their business, is the vulnerability aspect. It's a part of, letting themselves show it, deciding, that I'm okay to share these stories. These stories have made me who I am, and they brought me to where I am. And often when, a lot of the business people that I work with, what I see is that they've overcome adversity in some way, and then they're choosing that as an experience to teach to other people how they did it, or they're choosing to show up and give, be a service to other people. That's a lot of what I see, or that they've had a lot of maybe success working through a particular thing, through a particular service or modality that they're now offering. So vulnerability sounds like something that you need to do on a regular basis, but at the same time, you're able to cover it up almost with your characters. So, how do you kind of find the fine line between being vulnerable enough to go there as yourself, but then also as your character?
Yeah, that's a really deep question. I just did this show on Friday for the Yukon Arts Centre, and it was a funded live video broadcast concert series. And part of the pandemic, losing all my gigs has made gigs like that become so important. And it was really nice to just be able to prepare all week and put sort of my heart and soul into it, to kind of put my best stuff forward. And I feel like I did my best, but it was really hard because I had all this really vulnerable stuff, like talking about my experience I went through this winter with my husband being diagnosed as bipolar, manic depressive, and I had to make sure it was okay with him that I talk about that on stage, and and then talking about some deaths of some friends, and that stuff is really hard and taxing, and it's draining, and it's really great to share, because I think it's important to share the human experience and reach out to people who might be feeling those things or experiencing those things. But it's so much less draining when it's not you and it's a character that's takes away that whole vulnerability that you're talking about.
Do you have to share everything, do you think, or can you keep parts of yourself, hidden? And did you need to talk about those things to get them free from you, or was it in a way to support other people to have this safe conversation?
I think it's probably a combination, because I've always been someone who just tells all, and I think there's power in that, and there's power in community in that. I've definitely probably shot myself in the foot a few times by just telling all and saying too much. But when it's telling stories on stage, I think the good probably outweighs the bad. Like, people might stigmatize me for whatever reason, or go like, oh, Claire, whatever, she's, got drunk at that party and made a fool of herself, or whatever people want to think. At the end of the day, who cares? Because nobody cares.
Yeah, it's
or
true.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to wake up with yourself. And so if you're okay with who you are, that's really enough, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
One of the things that I teach business people that I work with is the concept of acting as if. And the concept of acting as if is basically that you think about the person that you want to become. You think about, so in terms of business, let's say, you think about, what she looks like, what she's wearing, the kind of work she's doing, her office, all those kind of elements, the virtues that she has, all that kind of stuff. And then you think about that, and then you start to basically take on those qualities. So, I'll use myself as an example. So when I think about the businesswoman that I want to be, right? She gets up and she runs 4 times a week or 3 times a week. She has a certain taste level. So she buys clothes that are at a certain taste level. They don't need to necessarily be brand, but they're just nice, for my taste. She shows up and she does an 8 to 10 hour workday, while she's building her empire. So she can talk about that experience. So these are small things. So I guess where I'm going with this question is that every time I'm making a decision, I act as though I am that person already, because it's my belief that as you act in that way, then you will become that way. So do you think in a way that some of the skills that you have as an actor actually could help business people to become the person that they want to be, almost to take on that persona and to not worry about being so vulnerable, to just really become the person that they're meant to be, and then eventually they'll grow into it? Not that you're going to grow into an Ashley Saunders or a Johnny, but the same sort of
No,
concept,
but
I guess.
that's really interesting, because clown, like the clown training that I've had, which is very, the word clown is kind of brings about preconceived notions for people, but really the idea of clown is this really in-depth look at yourself, and you just allow yourself to laugh at all your foibles. And I think that that's really powerful, because once you can face all that, then you feel free to be whoever you want to be, and you can transform yourself and fix those foibles if you want, and like you said, kind of be the change that you want to see in yourself. Or yeah, and I do think that clown, like I've heard a lot of people doing like improv workshops for business offices or whatever, and I've often thought that clown could be really good to help people, like Toastmasters or whatever, help people become better performers or become better just socializers in society, because it's all about being in the moment and breathing and eye contact and being completely honest about whatever's happening. So often we're like, oh, Ben, and you kind of clam, especially now, like with all this COVID stuff, like I haven't seen anybody in months, and I'm so socially awkward when I go, I go to the Midnight Sun Coffee Roasters because it opened the other day, and I go in, and the first thing I said was, what do I do? Like it wasn't like, hey, how's it going? It was like, what do I do? Because I was just so clammed up, and I don't know how to engage anymore, and we don't know the sort of steps inside a place anymore because it's all new. So we're all kind of awkward, but being honest about how the awkwardness can make it funny and make it charming. I guess it's all about honesty. Yeah.
I think that, especially in the world of social media, a lot of things that business people and entrepreneurs need to be doing is showing their authority and showing their, their knowledge, and showing up on social and showing, that they know what they're talking about. And that really helps to build credibility and trust with their customers, or, their clients. And, I think that sometimes people allow, self-doubt to get in the way of that. And they allow, the fact that they think that they need to be perfect to get in the way of that. Sometimes I've felt even self-conscious that if my hair doesn't look a certain way in a video, that people are going to be distracted by that, and they're not going to be listening to what I'm saying. But I do it anyway, I suppose, because I feel that in a way, you need to work through the fear, and you need to kind of come out the other side understanding that hopefully they'll glean some light in what you've said. Where do you think perfection fits in to the work that you do? Or is that even important?
Yeah.
Like, you need to be perfect?
Yeah, well, we're such judgmental creatures, and I think I've been trying to escape that and try to like teach people not to be judgmental by just being everything and not giving a damn. But at the end of the day, people are judgmental, and I am too, and I judge people on everything. And
Yeah.
that's what makes us human. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think I've also always wanted to almost teach people to be more accepting of the different sides of people, because we as humans want to kind of categorize people and like want them to just kind of do one thing, and that's what they are, and that's where we put them in our category. But for someone like me, who's a jack of all trades, who wants to sing and dance and do theater and teach circus camps, and it's almost like I can picture in people's minds them going like, well, you can't have it all. Like, you can't do everything. What are you? Are you going to choose this or that? And I don't know if that's me judging myself or if that's real, because probably somewhere inside me, I judge people that way too.
I think that the work that you do is complementary of itself, though, because sometimes, when I'm, helping people with goal setting and things like that, sometimes they want to do a lot of different things. And I'm the same way. But I do believe that, while you want to do many things, you can only do one thing at a time, in the moment, I mean, right? And so I think that it's wise in a way to focus on a goal. And while you're working towards that goal, once it's coming to completion, then you add on the next goal. Because I think that sometimes people can get really caught up and consumed in everything that they need to do, that they actually don't do anything well because they're so distracted. That being said, the work that you do, it's all complementary of each other. So if you're going to be singing and dancing, that's, by you strengthening those skills, that's going to help you with the other modalities that you do, right? So in a way, you're kind of different in terms of that.
Yeah, I think there's something probably valid in finding good role models, people who work the same way as you do. Like, I know for me, I've always thought it was like an ADD thing or something, that I jump back and forth, or I'm working on 3 different projects at once. But that's kind of the way I work best. And I look at someone like Grant Simpson, who was my boss at the Frantic Follies Vaudeville Revue, and who produced my latest kids record, and who is a amazing piano virtuoso, and who plays jazz. And for theater, he wrote the play that my dad wrote. He was a co-writer on Dogtown. So he's kind of like me, where he's all over the map. But he says that he works best that way as well, like just having different projects and jumping back and forth. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think it's probably just good to find somebody who works the way you do, to kind of validate that. And there's no wrong way or right way of doing things, as long as it's good work.
Yeah, I think that for myself, and you know me well, so our listeners are still probably getting to know me, but I've been known to do the same thing with a lot of projects, a lot of events on the go. I did around 300 or something when I was running my company. So, I'm used to doing a lot of things. But what I noticed over the years as I've wisened up is that as long as I can get my time management to be good, then I can allow and do all the other things that I want to do, right? So at the moment, I'm running a membership, I'm doing, my business, I've got 3 podcasts, plus all the training and learning I need to do for my membership. But at the same time, because my time management is good, because I'm focused on doing the thing that I'm doing at the time that I'm doing it, I can schedule things in my day properly. I think that that's been my saving grace. And I know that over the years, I've become better at that, because I wasn't always great at answering emails on time, 10 years ago, for example. So I think that, you can do these sort of things if you're disciplined enough to time manage properly. But I think that if your challenge is time management, that taking on more than you can chew actually will not be advantageous to you. So how do you deal with your time management? Do you have a system?
Yeah.
Or have you developed that?
I don't know if I have an exact system, but definitely worth noting that it's way more difficult now that I have a 4-year-old.
Yes.
Because before I was just working and doing and focused and not focused, and I would get so much done. But, of course I'm parenting almost 24/7 because thank goodness my husband also has a day job. But and there's no daycare now with the pandemic, so I'm parenting all the time. And sometimes he can be doing his Lego or drawing or whatever, and I can be working, but there's a constant distraction factor. Like, and I'm, I trained as a secretary, so I do have part of that multitasking ability, but the distraction of a kid is like monumental, and and it's affecting my mental health for sure.
Yeah, I did want to ask you about, how you deal with parenting, since that change. But I do just want to throw in one little thing for you. And I think that the important thing to acknowledge is that if you have one important thing to work on in the day, try to do it when, you have an uninterrupted period, because multitasking is multi-switching. So it means that your brain is switching from one thing to the next constantly, which means that you're actually not being as productive as you can. And one thing that I really encourage people to do is to keep track of their time for an entire week. And basically what you could do is you could write down Monday through Sunday, and then in 15-minute increments, you just write down what you're doing all the time. And you might find that you have little windows of time where you can work on those bigger projects. And so, I think that and I'm not a parent, so it's really easy for me to say this. I recognize that. But at the same time, I do know that there's opportunities when, children go to sleep, or when they're, having downtime or watching a movie, when, they are more absorbed than when they're, playing with art things and you're still kind of keeping half an eye out that he's not, drawing on the carpet and things like that. So, but let's talk a bit about, how your life has changed, because as a successful businesswoman who also has to hustle, in the line of work that you're in, even though you have, the credibility behind you and more than enough experience, you're still hustling. You're still, being the entrepreneur businesswoman running your own show. I mean, you don't have an agent, I don't think. And then at the same time, you're a wife, you're a friend, and you're also a mother. So, how has your journey changed, and have you become a little bit more kinder with your expectations for yourself?
Yeah. So in March, when everything got canceled, it was such a relief. I was like, I had taken on, I was about to produce the Atlan Music Festival, and I just had all the other, well, you passed on the Canada Day gig, so I produced that. And I just had this really busy summer coming up, and we're also building a house and, parenting. And then my husband's still adjusting to this new medication. And so it was such a relief to just have everything canceled, because you get so used to the hustle. Like you said, you're just hustling, and I love the hustle most of the time, but it's been so great to have a break from it. And I have been getting some gigs, and most of them are video stuff, but it's just so great to not have to keep pounding the pavement and getting gigs and lining things up and organizing this and organizing that. And I get to just kind of focus on building a house and settling all that. And then having a real summer. Like, the summer in the Yukon is 2 months, 3 months maybe. So you've got this beautiful weather and almost 24 hours daylight, and then the rest of the year is winter, and you end up getting all your gigs and festivals and teaching my circus camps and doing all that in the summer. So I never get to just relax and watch the plants grow and see watch my kid grow and go on little camping trips and canoe trips. Yesterday we drove up a mountain just for fun, and we don't do a lot of that usually because we're both kind of always hustling. So it's hard to say in the grand scheme of things, minus the pandemic, how things are going and how things have changed. But will say that I've been pleasantly surprised how much I can still get done, because when I found out I was having a baby, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to kind of stop everything. And I don't know what I thought that my life would change so much, but it doesn't. You kind of just keep going and doing what you do. Your kid just comes along if you want to. I mean, I guess I could get a job, and I've thought about, becoming a healthcare assistant that they need so badly now that it's brought to light with all this. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's a part of me that is ready to settle down and do something like that.
Well, it doesn't mean you couldn't do it part-time. I mean, I thought that, over the years, you've always sort of had a secondary job, when times have been tough or when you've been between gigs.
Well, the Yukon is great for that. Like I did do the secretary work I did was always auxiliary. So it was like I could choose when I worked, which was great. And I might try that again. But right now it's pretty cool because my husband's an electrician and he hasn't stopped working at all through this. And I'm doing pretty well with the art stuff. So we'll see how it goes. It's pretty interesting to be open to anything. Like I'm down with taking on a day job, and I'm down with continuing the hustle, and I'm down with whatever happens.
Do you find it's hard to say no to gigs or opportunities that come up even if they're not really what you want to do because it's revenue?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's part of the hustle is like, and especially when you get like an offer for a gig, like this winter I got this offer to sing the anthem. I do this trilingual version of the anthem that you probably learned at Whitehorse Elementary as well. It's like English, French, and Southern Shoshone. And I've been performing it at events, and the Yukon Quest, the dog mushing race, wanted me to do it at their banquet. And I thought, oh, that's such a great place. Like I've never really been part of the Quest. This big dog sled race is so huge. People come from all over the world to see it, and it's a banquet, so it's kind of fancy. People dress up, but they wanted to pay me with a meal, and usually I charge $300, and it's my pet peeve when I get that email that says, oh, and plus you'll get a ticket to the event. It's like, oh, well, thank you very much for giving me a ticket to the event that I'm going to sing at. Like that's the worst.
That I wouldn't have gone to anyway. Yeah. So how did you deal with that scenario?
Well, I was going to do it, and I said, well, I'll definitely would love to if my husband and kid can come along as well. And she said, oh yeah, yes. But then she said that she would, instead of giving me a sweatshirt, give me a t-shirt, because the banquet tickets are usually $90 each. And I'm going, okay, you're going to nickel and dime me, you're going to give me a t-shirt instead of a sweatshirt now. And I just said, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Just because it would have been fine. I would have loved to, whatever, but you just feel like you're being nickeled and dimed when you're doing something for free, kind of.
Yeah, well, you are. And I think that's such an interesting story, because she clearly on some level thought that she was giving you the opportunity where you were going, I'm a professional who has done over 1,000 shows, if you want, I have a name for myself in the community. I've developed, the reputation of doing this, this song so well. You have to pay for the privilege of that. I remember one time I went to an art show and a friend of mine, she had overpriced all her art. I think she'd put like $600 on each piece or something. And she told me secretly that she didn't actually want to sell any of her art. So she put it up so high that if anyone else was going to buy it, at least she would have, been compensated. So I thought that was an interesting thing. Yeah, I think
then she probably did sell some anyway.
I don't actually remember whether or not she did. I don't think she did. But at the same time, if she had, she would have been good to go with that. So, I did a Facebook Live a little while ago about how to say no. So are there ways that you learn to say no in a graceful way that still maintains, the relationship with that person? Because in this scenario, that might have been a good contact, but it clearly wasn't the right fit.
Yeah. So this woman, I just remembered too, that night of the banquet was closing night for the play I directed, the Angry and Ernest and Ernestine. So it was already like going to be a bit of a, stressful thing to have to go eat supper really quickly, sing the anthem, and then go make it up to the theater. So I gave that as my main reason. And I said, please, ask me next year, because I would want to do it for 3 tickets and a t-shirt. Yeah. Or sweatshirt.
So how have you said no in the past? Do you use the the experience of saying, that I'm not available even if you are, or do you take the job even if you are available because they're not always, their jobs aren't coming as frequently? Or
right. I guess I usually say I'm not available if I don't want to do it. I have something going on.
Yeah.
I'm washing my hair that night.
How do you tell the difference between something that might make financial sense to do and something that you don't want to do? I mean, let's pretend that, somebody comes up to you and gives you an offer and, that it's not a good idea, but the compensation is so much that it's making you think about it. How do you gauge your decision in a scenario like that?
Yeah, I guess it's one of those time management questions. I think that was probably one of the main reasons I took the Atlin producing gig. And as things were going on, it's one thing to produce a festival, as you know, which you've done. It's another to produce a festival while answering to a board of directors who wants to have their fingers in all the pies that you're trying to bake. And it was turning out to be a lot of work. So when it got canceled, I was very happy, but it was a great gig, and it was a well-paid gig. And it wasn't the only reason I took it, but one of the main reasons was the money was good. And I was looking at maybe the fact that my husband was going to take some time off to, recover mentally, so he could have some time off this summer, and so that I could be working. So that one I kind of took just for the dough. But every time I've done that, it's kind of been a mistake when I'm just doing it for the money. And not to begrudge money, I love money, and I often, as my mantra, say I want to make more money or whatever it is.
Money comes to me easy, freely, frequently. That's a good one.
Yeah. Is that yours? Yeah. But every time I make a decision based on money, it's often the wrong choice. I have to just keep being driven by the heart.
Yeah. And one of the things that I remind people of is if you're saying yes to something that doesn't fill you with joy, if you're saying yes to that, then the experience that does fill you with joy, that is the right experience, won't present itself, or you'll be too busy to do the other thing that you want to do.
Yeah.
It's having trust that if you're saying no to something because in your soul it doesn't sit, that something else will come.
Yeah, exactly.
What are some of the best tips you've learned along the way, as far as being a businesswoman and, managing yourself and the expectations of others and things like that?
I don't know really what I do. I would love to see high school teach more useful skills. Like the math that I learned in high school is totally useless in the real world. And what I would have liked to learn is about taxes or about,
Yeah.
a business plan or being, anything entrepreneurial. Because even people who have day jobs and work for someone else, those skills are still useful in every walk of life. And yeah, I don't know, as far as tips that I have, I guess I would probably need a more specific area.
Well, what lessons, I guess, have you learned along the way? I mean, clearly you have developed the ability to be able to say no. Clearly
Have I?
you're self-aware enough to understand when you've said yes to jobs that are just fueled by money, that they haven't worked out for you. So maybe it's getting clear on that.
Yeah, I think it's a combination probably of, what you're talking about when you're putting your best self forward, and the idea of yourself that you want to be seen in the world. I guess I'm just always striving to be better and better and better. And that's the work of an artist. It's also the work of everybody, I guess, just trying to be a better person and a better business person. And I guess one tip that I have would be not to undervalue your work.
Yeah.
And these days, I mean, you grow. Like I didn't start out asking for $200 an hour or whatever it is, but you have to also value like how much it's worth to the customer, I guess. And I do have a sliding scale, like it's $50 an hour for some people, and a lot more for say something that has government funding. And but also, like, don't undercut yourself, because as soon as you do something for free, you're undercutting other people who do that for a living. You're also undercutting yourself. And the next time that person wants to hire an MC or whatever they want,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be looking for it for free again because they got it for free that time. So
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen that before when people have been trying to sell things and they'll slash the price. And, one thing I can tell you is exactly what you said. Customers have very long memories and they will always remember the price they previously paid. And let me tell you right now, if you're not giving them some new incentive or some bonus or some kind of reason for why they should pay equal or more, then you're screwed. So I think that is so important. And I think that, is that a raven in the background?
yeah.
Love it.
Just flew over.
I think that, one thing, Claire, especially as women, one of the things that I see is that, there is some sort of hesitancy with charging what you're worth, and understanding that, no, I have over 15 or 20 years experience. So that's why I can charge what I'm charging now. And, did you just sort of, has that been something you've had to kind of work to be comfortable, with understanding, yeah, this is my rate,
Yeah.
and you can take it or leave it?
Yeah. And being more comfortable with them backing out too. Like I used to just want every gig, and now it's like, well, you know what, I don't need this. If they don't want to pay what I want, then I don't need it. And
Yeah.
that's a nice, comfortable place to have gotten to in my career, is just remembering that maybe I don't want, like, how much do I want to do this thing? So like if I calculate in the driving it takes to get there, the prep it takes to do what it takes, like if it's a weekend out of my summer that I could be camping or whatever, what do I need for money to make it worth it for myself? And if that's not there, then maybe I do want to go camping instead.
Yeah. It's so important to be doing that because there's so many people that are stuck doing, I call it $10 jobs, but it's basically that if you charge $200 an hour and you're spending time doing jobs that are basically valued at $10 an hour, that it's not a good use of your time. You should be hiring somebody to do that, or you should be doing those jobs if you don't have the capacity to hire anyone yet, when the most important jobs are done. And I think that sometimes people aren't thinking in the way that you just thought about the return on investment, and you just went, wait a minute, if the amount of time that I need to put in, if the investment that I'm getting back from that isn't worth it, then I'm not going to do the job. And taking that time, and it sounds like to me that you take time to reflect before you make an answer.
I'm getting better at that. Yeah. Some people want an answer right away. They call you on the phone and they're like, so how much? And it's always better to get off the phone and calculate first. Because I did that recently where I went, oh yeah, it probably won't take as much time. And so I quoted it. And then in this world of video, everything's gone video. I'm now making this video for Canada Day. And I recruited all these artists to send me videos, and there's regular Yukoners sending me videos, and there's politicians sending me videos of their Canada Day greetings. And I kind of thought, oh, it'll probably be a bit less work than, producing the in-person festival, but it's not, and it's different work that I'm not familiar with. So it's like, I totally underestimated what kind of work it was. And I'm still getting paid okay. It's not that. It's just to make sure you take the time to really figure out what it's worth to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's so good because you know what? Much like you, I'd rather have my weekend off than do a job that isn't going to be worth my time. And especially if it's not a job I feel guided or that I really want to do.
And the other thing is that if I'm not getting paid enough, I don't put in as good of a job. Like if I'm getting $50 to be an MC, I'm going to be a $50 MC, and that's what people see, and that's what people base their judgment on. So then they won't hire me in the future. It's like, I want $250 to be an MC so I can be a good MC and then get more gigs in the future. Yeah. But here's another one that I thought of that you would like, which is kind of a tip for other people maybe, or like everyone who's doing business. But I got hired to do circus entertainment for a Halloween party. And so I hired 5 different circus performers, like a stilt walker, a juggler, aerialists, fire. And then the next year, they did the same Halloween party again, but they only hired one of the people that I had hired. So they kind of skipped the middleman and went and hired this person that was on my roster and like went straight to them instead of going through me, so that it was cheaper. And I went like, oh my God, that's like such bad business. Like it may seem innocent at the time when you're like, oh yeah, I'll just ask this person, but it's sort of like it was a total slap in the face, and it's probably not something that they ever even thought of when they hired her. So it's a good tip. Business tip.
So are you kind of the agent in a way?
Yeah, I was kind of like the agent. I didn't actually perform at it because I had a baby, and it was like a bar gig, so it was till 2 a.m. and I didn't want to. Yeah.
But it's interesting, isn't it? The etiquette, I guess. Yeah.
It's a good thing to keep in mind.
So what are you working on now?
Building a house. Well, I'm working on that Canada Day video, and I just performed for some other Saint Jean-Baptiste Day videos, one for this Francophone Center here and one for the Francophone Center in Yellowknife. And then I'm also doing another video gig for a festival in Yellowknife. And And then I've been recording some kind of more slow, sultry jazz stuff with Daniel Jank in his studio. And that feels good to kind of come out of doing a kids album into some more like adult, kind of the music I listen to, which is usually sad, slow, jazzy music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did your son sort of encourage you or, inspire you to do the children's content?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty
Big
cool.
time. It's completely dedicated to him. And the first song that I wrote was Beautiful Baby, which is kind of like my version of the I Love You Forever book by Robert Munch.
Oh yeah.
It's like, you'll always be my baby kind of thing. And that was the first one I wrote. And then the rest I've just written over the past few years, just being with him. And I'm still writing kids stuff. It's just nice to stop and record some of my other adulty stuff.
The kids market's a good market to get into. And when you're a wacky person like you actually suit that very well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely made for working with the kids. And the kids are so great as an audience because they're so not, judgmental, and they they are what they are. They're exactly, and they're fun, and you get to just, yeah, I think there's something about that that's going to be perfect for me.
So what are you doing for that? Are you going to market? How are you marketing these things? Are you going to do YouTube videos? Are you going to start a children's clothing line? Are you going to come up with some kind of funky name and have little characters that people can buy?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to, here comes Augie now, my little guy. He sees me in the forest. He's like, I just want to give you a hug.
He's been very good. Our listeners at home don't know, but he had a full-on meltdown before the call, and Claire had to walk into the Yukon forest to get away from her son. So we probably should wrap it up. It's about an hour now, but I do want to know if you can sort of quickly tell us a little bit about, your marketing plans, I guess, for this, just because I'm curious.
I made a bit of a mistake with this one because I just wanted to get it out there. And that's like the classic mistake for recording artists, is like, you've been working on this for 2 years and it's finally ready. And you're like, I'm just going to release it. And then you go, oh, like I didn't line up my ducks probably properly, like sending it out to all the magazines so they can, have it for the release date, blogs and websites and things like that. But on the other side of things, the kids market is a little different, and I'm getting a lot of great radio play from all these like kids radio stations, and they're interviewing me, and I get so much more response from the radio stations that I send it out to than you do with just a regular old adult album.
Yeah. So are you Claire on the album, or are you a character?
It's sort of Claire Ness and the swing sets, and that's sort of how I've been differentiating my adult and my kids stuff lately. But it's weird identity crisis for me, because I'm like stuck in between wanting to be a clown and then sometimes feeling like I should just not wear the nose, and then I'm also using Claire Ness, which is my name. So I'm having like a marketing identity crisis.
Right. So how are you going to figure that out?
I don't know.
Crisis.
I think it's just a kids album that's been put out by me, Claire Ness. And yes, I am a clown as well. And people are just going to have to sit with that. And you know what, Brigitte, who I drum with, and she does a lot of my kids' shows with me, or she drums with me rather, she's the drummer. She is fantastic. And she says, she goes, oh, nobody cares. Hey, wait, nobody cares. Yay.
Fantastic. Say fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's interesting, but it doesn't mean that you can't refine the concept for the second album. All right, Claire. Well, thank you so much. I know that, your son is calling you away, so we'll wrap this up. Thank you so much for, your valuable experience, sharing that, your stories, your tips, and I love seeing you. So thank you for making the time.
Thank you, Lauren. It's so great to hear you and see you, and I just love you so much. And we miss you up here in the Yukon, and Australia is lucky to have you.
Love you too. And for our listeners at home who want to know more about, Claire Ness and the swinging sets, or is that what you called it? The swing sets?
The swing sets, yeah.
And everything else that Claire's been doing, she'll give me a whole bunch of links. So I'll put that all in the show notes and you can find out more about Claire and you can download her music as well. So thank you for listening at home.
Thank you so very much for listening. As always, if you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a review in iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts and share it with your friends.